Hello, my name is Linnea from Linnea Loves Music, and today we're going to be talking about tips to improve your songwriting. So tip number one is to make sure that you write songs often. When you're writing consistently, you're going to have the opportunity to be able to continue to improve your craft as you go along. The next important tip to songwriting is to write even when you aren't feeling inspired. Oftentimes as beginner songwriters, you can write only when inspiration hits, and if you aren't feeling inspired, the song just doesn't get finished. But one of the things I remember learning from some songwriters that were really experienced when I was younger, and the thing that I was absolutely amazed with was how they broke through writer's block. And it is an actual skill to be able to go through writer's block. At times I didn't know, I was like, I don't know what the next word should be. And sure enough, they would be there on their laptop, crazily searching everything, trying to look at poetry and different articles and stuff to try to jog their memory of like what would be some really good lyrics. And they would open up the thesaurus and they would go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And basically they worked to the point that writer's block was not an option. The next tip is to become familiar with excellent song structure. Until you understand what the rules are for music, it's kind of hard to break the rules. I'm not saying that you can't break the rules, you totally can, but I think it's important to become aware of what the stereotypical top 40 hit is. Then when you go back and you break the rules, you'll be breaking rules with intention, and it'll still be catchy, but it won't be breaking rules just for the sake of breaking rules with no purpose and no intention. The next tip is to set yourself up to capture your songwriting inspiration. So oftentimes inspiration will happen just like in the most random place, but if you aren't set up to capture that initial inspiration, you can't therefore roll up your sleeves and take it to that next level. So I often think having your phone available so that you can record a voice memo is really helpful. I also often have this leather notebook that I scribble notes on for different song ideas, and I'll put little sticky note tabs so that I can find each of the songwriting ideas, which is quite helpful. Make sure that you don't completely and absolutely forget your most genius idea of all time if you are prepared. The next tip is to set up a consistent songwriting schedule so that you are consistently writing. The next tip is to write down absolutely everything that you can think of about a topic. So I once read this in a songwriting book. It's an old book. It's called How to Write a Hit Song, and it's by Molly Ann. And it was probably the best songwriting book that I had ever read. And in that book, she has this example where she asks you to spend a certain amount of time just writing absolutely everything that you could think about a red brick house. And so she asks you to write everything that you can for a few minutes. So it could be anything you could think about, like, does the house have a fireplace? Is it just red, or does it have other colors in the siding? Is it just brick? Is there vinyl? Who lives in the house? How long have they lived there? Are there trees nearby? And it gets you to it has a string of like many questions for you to ask yourself to just kind of get started on the idea. And it's an amazing exercise. And I found going through that exercise was so great because it was a really good exercise in learning how to conquer writer's block. Because oftentimes we become so micro-focused on, I need to get the next line and the next line needs to be done perfectly, that we overanalyze and we kind of get in our own way. We overanalyze what the perfect lyric would be, and in the process of trying to get to the perfect lyric, we actually stop the flow coming into our brain. So we judge the idea before it even gets down on paper. So the next tip is to write in, when you're writing your lyrics, to write in couplets and to use idioms to help to make your lyrics more conversational. With couplets, what I mean is taking two lyrics that come right after each other, and they're going to have the rhyming scheme at the end. And the first one's going to be the first part of the second sentence, and the second line is going to be that second part of the sentence. And when you have two lines back to back that complete a whole thought, it's going to make it sound much more conversational. With American idioms, it's basically phrases that are used in the English language that kind of say different things. So, for instance, for me to say it's raining cats and dogs, we don't actually mean it's raining cats and dogs. Like, cats and dogs aren't literally falling out of the sky, but it's a phrase that means it's raining really hard. And so when you add in those types of phrases, it helps to make the song feel more conversational. The next tip is to be authentic. When you write songs, you need to be in a really authentic emotional place. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to exactly have gone through the exact things that happened in the song. For instance, you could be writing a song for a client that is about their father passing away. You might have not personally had your father pass away, but you might have had someone else pass away, or you might have had a specific trauma in your life that you felt incredible pain and anguish and loss over. And you can take that emotion and that feeling with you into the song, even if you haven't personally gone through that. However, if you can't find a connection point to the subject matter from an emotional perspective, it's not going to really ring very true. So the next tip is to be aware of your rhythm. For 99% of the time, and there are of course exceptions to the rule, but you typically want to have very similar syllables going on in your lyrics. And as a little bonus here, another thing to also be aware of as far as singable is concerned is to also really think about especially what the last word is at the end of each phrase. So for instance, if you pick a word at the very end that is really hard consonants, like start would probably be a really hard word to sing at the end of the line, because it doesn't really ring very well when the person is singing it, because S and T don't really ring very well, and art there's like no there is an A there, but there isn't much vowel for that word to cling to. Whereas if you use a word at the end like you, to, do, those words really ring really well when they end on that vowel, and the singer can really hold out that note and really make it sound really gorgeous. So the last tip is to think of your melody in your songwriting. This might be a little overgeneralized of a rule, but usually your verses will be lower and your choruses will go a little bit higher. Together, all of these tips will help you to create a song that is really catchy, exciting, interesting, and help it to have a lot of depth. I hope you enjoyed today's tips. For more tips on songwriting, I hope you check back often. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment, and I look forward to seeing you soon for more tips for your musical adventure.